how does this work in a little more detail, and how is it paid for? Good morning.
Hi, good morning. So this is a really exciting scheme, as you said. It would involve 30 participants, 15 in North London, 15 in Jarrow. So they would all be paid £1,600 a month. And then researchers would be monitoring them in a control group over the course of 2 years to see the sorts of effects that this form of payment and form of alternate benefit would have on their lives.
I thought you're not allowed to take a job for those 2 years, are you?
No, of course, yeah, you're allowed to work. So we're really interested in the effects that this will have on employment. So we've seen around the
So you'll
world.
get your 1,600 quid and you can bank a salary as well.
Yeah, so we're really interested in the effects on employment. So, for instance, we've seen in some of the pilots that have taken place in Finland, where there was experimentation of UBI, employment actually increased slightly for those who were in receipt of payment. And similarly in Stockton in California, where we've had experimentation, people who've received basic income, they're in better, more stable work after it, as well as seeing more improvements in their physical and mental health. So that would be one of the factors. Like I said, physical and mental health, we want to see how that was affected by this and so on. The think tank Compass has already modelled one form of more modest basic income, which could actually be rolled out at net zero cost, but would still see poverty drastically shrink. Yeah, that's one of the effects we've seen in lots of these trials. Is poverty is drastically shrunk by this
Jack, of
approach.
course poverty will shrink because you're giving people 20 grand a year.
In this pilot, that would be the sum that goes forward. There are lots of different models for basic income at different levels that have been put forward. But look, this is huge. I think the other side of that is poverty would shrink. We could eliminate poverty.
Well, of course it will, because of course, but someone on the only way it would be funded would an increase in taxation. I would have thought you're not going to be able to get charity to fund it for everybody. I appreciate for your project and good luck to you, and I hope all the necessary funding comes forward. But to roll this out across the country, yeah, of course you'll end poverty because who is ever in work will be paying taxes the like of which no one's ever seen before.
Well, there are plenty of different models have already been put forward for this. Not all of them would be particularly extreme tax rates that you suggested there. There are lots of different models for funding this. That's not the focus report. That's not what we've been doing. But we think, what we want to do and what we really want to focus on is to see what happens at this local level amongst these people. There's been really exciting experimentation around the world, the US, Finland. It's really important the UK takes part. Takes part in these experiments, takes part in these trials, so we can see what the effects might be here. So make sure that we don't lose out on the forms of welfare system which might be better fit for those forms of crisis we're going to face.
Thanks for your time this morning. Jack Kellam is a researcher with the group Autonomy UK think tank. They're putting that proposal in, effectively £20,000 to stay at home and not do any work. Well, it's fantastic, isn't it? But ultimately, who would pay?
A universal basic income that will run for 2 years and will involve 30 people for 2 years, every month, no questions asked, will be given £1,600 a month. No questions. Think of the difference that would make to Michael, our first caller. I mean, it's stunning. It's a really interesting sum of money as well, because people who earn 10 times that every month will be receiving their orders now to start raging and raving about how it's completely unsustainable and how is anyone ever going to be able to pay for it. But I think that a universal basic income is probably inevitable. And the crucial word here is universal. So everybody gets it. Not in this scheme, obviously, this is just 30 people, but what they're looking to measure is the difference that it has upon people's lives.
Phil, what in the actual hell is this nonsense? £20,000 on top of a working wage. Stop the world, I really do want to get off. Stanley says no other benefit payments, tax paid on the whole amount if employed as well. But bear in mind, JSA, Job Seekers Allowance, for I think just is for like a regular bloke or woman is £84 a week. 8, 16, 24, 32, £320 roughly. Let's say 350. £350 a month is considerably less than £1,600 a month.
Neil, what do you reckon? Do you think it's inevitable? Do you think it's inevitable?
Morning, James.
Hello, mate.
Yeah, I think it probably is.
I do too. That's a big surprise.
I like it as a concept.
Yes.
And I think, it's an absolutely sensible thing to do. Think about it. If you make people financially secure in terms of covering the base, like the previous caller said, I agree with much of what they said, giving them that financial safety blanket. You can pay the bills, and it gives you choices, and it actually doesn't de-incentivize people. I think, contrary to what one of the previous callers said, I think it absolutely gives you more incentive. It gives you a platform to build on. So if you are got aspirations about building a career in a particular area, and you need to retrain, for example, it opens up options for you, and to perhaps be able to do that.
Harry and Basildon on this idea. Harry, you're on the radio. Good morning.
As an employee, I find it as a bit of a problem, because at the moment I'm able to employ people, because if they don't work, then they starve.
Well, now I have to say, of course,
the bargaining position is totally undermined.
There'll be people shouting at the radio now that you're exploiting them, and then it's good, therefore, that exploitative bosses such as you are not paying paltry wages, almost a basic wage, and you'll have to pay a proper wage, is what they would say.
Yeah, well, they're right, because that's the system we live in. It's a system of exploitation. That is capitalism for you. So it's a way of managing capitalism to a little way, but it affects me and probably will affect a lot of other unscrupulous employers.
What line are you in?
Retail and also hospitality.
Right. You don't mind being an unscrupulous employer?
Well, the circumstances, it's the system. I live in the system. I'd like to change the system, but until such times as we can change the system, that's what we've got.
Daniel, what would you like to say about UBI?
It's not about giving everyone sort of 5-bedroom houses with swimming pools. It's about covering the basics so that you know that you don't have to worry about that, and then you can build your life on that. And I think in the last sort of couple of years, when we've had pandemics and all sorts of kind of economic shocks, that has become more and more important.
Who's against it in your experience?
Well, I think people tend to. Some of the objections are often around two things. One is, what will people do with it, right? Will they spend it all on fags and watching television and drinking beer? Generally, what I tend to say about that is, I tend to think that I'm not that special, and I'm like other people, and I don't think I would do that. And you pose that question to one of your colleagues, what would that stop you working? And people always say, oh no, not me, but other people. Not me,
but those other people over there with the flat screen televisions. Because that's the weirdest thing about right-wing rhetoric about feckless, work-shy, lazy people. Is it if their choices are so attractive, why don't you do it yourself?
Yeah, most people don't, because
I don't
most
want to
people
live
are
like that.
You, right? So they will do whatever, whatever is sensible, right? And they will spend it on whatever
also, yes, exactly. And we are mostly, and if you're not aspirational, then you probably need some help in other areas of your life in order to be leading a slightly better existence. But it is such a powerful weapon used by right-wing idiots it used to be flat-screen TVs. Do you remember that? Everyone had a flat-screen TV. About 10 years after, it became impossible to buy a telly that wasn't flat-screen. They were still banging on about how everybody who received any benefit at all from the welfare state was spending it all on flat-screen television. So you'll get the same rhetoric here.